"Sign it," Brad hissed, his voice cutting through the rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor like a serrated knife. Chloe stared at the document, her vision blurring at the edges due to the exhaustion that still clung to her bones. Just 3 hours ago, she had undergone emergency surgery to bring 3 distinct Fraggie lives into the world, and now the man who had promised to love her forever was looming over her. Hospital bed with a pen in his hand and malice in his eyes. "I do not understand," Chloe whispered, her voice rasping because her throat was so dry from the labor. "We just had them. Brad, they are your children." Brad scoffed, adjusting the cuffs of his expensive designer jacket as if the very air of the maternity ward was contaminating his suit. "Correction," he said, cold and sharp. "You had them. I signed out for 1 kid, Chloe. 1. I did not sign up for a litter. Do you have any idea what 3 tuitions cost? What 3 cars cost? I am barely 30 years old, and I am not about to anchor myself to a sinking ship of diapers and screaming." He tapped the paper with his manicured finger, the sound erratic and demanding. Chloe looked past him, toward the 3 clear plastic bassinets arranged near the window. Inside them lay the triplets, so small and helpless, unaware that their father was negotiating their abandonment before they had even opened their eyes. A wave of nausea that had nothing to do with the anesthesia rolled over her stomach. "You cannot do this," she pleaded, trying to sit up, but a sharp pain in her abdomen forced her back against the pillows with a gasp. "You cannot just leave us here." "Primera abinojo Brad. I have nowhere to go." "That sounds like a you problem," Brad replied, checking his gold watch with exaggerated impatience. "Look, I spoke to my attorney. This is a clean break. I take the debt on the Audi, you take the kids. It is a fair trade. I am not paying child support for 3 kids when I barely wanted 1. If you sign this now, I walk away and I do not contest full custody. You get them all to yourself." He leaned in closer, his cologne overpowering the scent of antiseptic. "Or," he whispered, dropping his voice to a menacing low, "you can try to fight me. I will drag this out until you are bankrupt, and I will make sure the judge thinks you are mentally unstable. Do you really want to play that game with me, Chloe?" Tears finally spilled over her lashes, hot and stinging against her pale cheeks. She looked at the man she had married, searching for any trace of the charming, ambitious real estate agent she had fallen for. But that man was gone, replaced by a stranger consumed by vanity and greed. He did not see his children as a blessing. He saw them as a line item on a spreadsheet that did not balance. "Give me the pen," she said, her voice shaking but gaining a strange, hollow strength. Brad's face relaxed instantly, a smug smile tugging at the corner of his mouth as he uncapped the expensive fountain pen and shoved it into her trembling hand. "Smart girl," he said. Chloe pressed the nib to the yellow paper. Her hand shook so violently that the first letter was nothing more than a jagged scratch, but she forced herself to continue. She wrote her name, signing away her marriage, signing away her support system, and accepting the terrifying reality of being a single mother to 3 newborns. As she finished the final loop of her name, the pen slipped from her fingers and clattered onto the plastic tray. Brad snatched the papers up before the ink was even dry, blown on the signature with a satisfied huff. "There," he said, tucking the documents into his leather briefcase with a sharp snap of the lock. "You are officially a free woman, Chloe, and I am officially debt-free. Do not expect me." "Do visit." He turned on his heel, his Italian leather shoes squeaking against the linoleum floor as he headed for the door, eager to escape the responsibility waiting in those baskets. Just as his hand touched the metal handle of the door, it swung open from the outside. A tall, elderly man with silver hair and a vintage gray suit stepped into the room, nearly colliding with Brad. He held a thick leather portfolio under his arm and looked over the rim of his spectacles with an air of grave importance. "Excuse me," the older man said, his voice deep and resonant, commanding immediate attention. "I'm looking for Mrs. Chloe Sterling." Brad stepped back, annoyed at the blockage. "She is over there," Brad said, gesturing vaguely behind him. "But she is busy recovering." "Who are you?" The man ignored Brad and walked straight to the bedside, his eyes softening as he saw Chloe's tear-streaked face. "Mrs. Sterling," the man said gently. "I am Arthur Henderson. I was your grandfather's personal attorney for 40 years. I apologize for the intrusion during such a delicate time, but his instructions were quite specific. Chloe wiped her eyes, confused. My grandfather passed away 6 months ago, Mr. Henderson. I thought the estate was settled. There was nothing left but the house debt. Mr. Henderson placed his portfolio on the tray table, right where the divorce papers had been just moments before. He clicked the latch open. That is what everyone was led to believe, Mr. Henderson said, glancing briefly at Brad, who was lingering by the door, his curiosity piqued by the mention of an estate. However, your grandfather created a blind trust. The Sterling Family Trust. It contains the entirety of his life's liquid assets. Brad took a step back into the room, his hand falling away from the door handle. Liquid assets? Brad asked, his voice suddenly losing its sharp edge. Mr. Henderson ignored him again, pulling out a thick document bound in blue velvet. He wanted to ensure you were protected. Chloe, Mr. Henderson continued, but he had grave concerns about ... External influences. The lawyer paused, looking directly at Brad now, his gaze piercing. The trust is valued at $100 million, Mr. Henderson stated calmly. The silence that followed was absolute. The beeping of the monitor seemed to stop. Brad's mouth fell open, the briefcase with the divorce papers suddenly feeling very heavy in his hand. $100 million, Brad stammered, his eyes widening as the numbers computed in his greed-driven mind. However, Mr. Henderson said, raising a finger, there is a condition, a very strict condition that must be met for the funds to be released to you, Chloe. Mr. Henderson adjusted his wire-rimmed spectacles, peering down at the document with the precision of a surgeon about to make a critical incision. The condition, Mr. Henderson read, his voice steady and devoid of warmth, is regarding your marital status. Your grandfather was a man of great intuition, Chloe. He believed that certain individuals in your life were ... parasitic in nature. Therefore, Clause 4B states that the entirety of the $100 million trust shall be released to Chloe Sterling immediately, provided she is not legally bound to Mr. Bradley Sterling. The lawyer looked up, his eyes locking onto Brad. Specifically, the text reads, if my granddaughter is single, widowed, or divorced from Mr. Bradley Sterling, the funds are hers. If she remains married to him, the funds remain frozen in perpetuity until such separation occurs. The room fell into a suffocating silence. The only sound was the hum of the air conditioner, which suddenly seemed very loud. Brad stood frozen near the door, his hand still clutching the handle of his leather briefcase, his face, previously flushed with arrogance and victory, drained of color so rapidly that he looked like a wax figure. His eyes darted from the lawyer to Chloe, and then down to the briefcase in his hand, a briefcase that contained the freshly signed, undeniable proof of his divorce. A nervous, high-pitched laugh escaped Brad's throat. That is very funny, he stammered, stepping away from the door and moving back toward the bed. Old man Sterling always had a dark sense of humor, but obviously, Chloe and I are very much in love. We just had triplets. We are a family. He forced a smile that looked more like a grimace, his eyes wild with desperation. Chloe stared at him, the fog of her exhaustion lifting as the absurdity of the situation crashed into her. She watched the man who, 30 seconds ago, had called their children a litter, now trying to rewrite history because of a dollar sign. Mr. Henderson raised an eyebrow, not buying the performance for a second. Is that so? The lawyer asked, tilting his head. Because when I walked in, the atmosphere seemed rather ... tense. And I believe I heard you mention a clean break. Brad waved his hand dismissively, sweat now beading on his forehead. Postpartum stress, Brad shouted, his voice cracking. We were just ... role-playing. It helps with the stress. Right, honey? He lunged toward the bed, reaching for Chloe's hand, but she pulled it away as if he were burning hot. No? Chloe said, her voice quiet, but gaining a steel-like resonance. Brad froze. Baby, don't, he hissed through gritted teeth, his eyes pleading. Think about the kids. Think about the money we can bear each. We can have everything we ever wanted. Just tell him. We are married. Chloe looked at Mr. Henderson, then pointed a shaking finger at the briefcase in Brad's hand. We are not married, she said clearly. I just signed the papers. They are in his bag. Panic exploded in Brad's chest. He realized that the yellow legal pad inside that bag was no longer his ticket to freedom. It was the death warrant for his access to $100 million. If he could destroy it, if he could rip it up before the lawyer saw it, he could claim they were still married. He frantically clawed at the gold clasps of his briefcase, his fingers slipping on the smooth metal. No, that was a mistake, Brad yelled, snapping the bag open. He grabbed the yellow legal pad, his knuckles white. I am tearing this up. It does not count. I was under duress. He grabbed the paper with both hands, ready to shred the document that proved his greed. Mr. Henderson, despite his age, moved with surprising speed. He didn't lunge. He simply stepped on the pedal of the hospital bed's call button. Security, the lawyer said calmly into the intercom system. Code gray in room 304. Domestic disturbance. Brad's hands were shaking so hard he couldn't get a good grip on the paper to tear it. He looked up, wild-eyed, as the heavy thud of running footsteps echoed in the hallway. Chloe, please, Brad screamed, waving the paper in the air. I love you. I didn't mean any of it. The debt, the eviction. I was just scared. We can share this. 50. You didn't want 50% of the responsibility, Chloe said, tears finally stopping as a cold clarity took over. You wanted 0%. So that it is what you get. The door burst open. Two burly hospital security guards filled the frame, their presence imposing. Get your hands off me, Brad shrieked as the guards seized his arms, pinning them behind his back. I am the father. Primera, V rights. Mr. Henderson calmly bent down and picked up the yellow legal pad. He inspected the shaky signature at the bottom, then looked up at Brad, who was being dragged backward toward the door. It appears this document is legally binding, Mr. Henderson noted dryly, folding the paper and tucking it securely into his own portfolio. Thank you for expediting the process, Mr. Sterling. You have saved us months of litigation. No. Brad's voice cracked, sounding like a desperate animal as he was hauled into the corridor. Chloe, don't let them do this. That is my money. Mine. The door swung shut, muffling his screams, leaving a ringing silence in his wake. Chloe slumped back against the pillows, her heart hammering against her ribs. She looked at the empty space where Brad had stood, then at the 3 bassinets by the window. 10 minutes ago, she had been a single mother with nothing but debt and 3 mouths to feed. Now, she looked at the babies, her rejected treasures. Mr. Henderson walked over to the bassinets, looking down at the infants with a soft smile. It seems, the lawyer said gently, that your grandfather knew exactly what he was doing. He didn't just leave you a fortune, Chloe. He bought your freedom. Chloe closed her eyes, listening to the soft breathing of her children. The burden Brad had been so terrified of was now the heir to an empire, and the man who had thrown them away was walking out into the parking lot with absolutely nothing. 6 months had passed since the hospital room door clicked shut, and the silence that followed had been the most expensive lesson of Brad's life, while Chloe navigated the sprawling grounds of her grandfather's estate, pointing out the blooming hydrangeas to 3 gurgling infants who would never know the want of a warm bottle. Brad was drowning. The Audi he had fought so hard to keep in the divorce settlement had been repossessed 3 weeks ago, towed away in the middle of the night, while he watched from behind his blinds, too ashamed to confront the driver. He sat on the edge of his mattress, holding a disconnection notice from the electric company, the paper shaking in his hand just as the divorce papers had shaken in Chloe's. Brad's eyes narrowed as the image of his ex-wife filled the screen. She looked nothing like the exhausted, broken woman he had abandoned. She looked powerful. The news anchor's voice grated on his nerves as they detailed her philanthropy mentioning to Sterling Trust and her dedication to single mothers. She is spending my money, Brad muttered, crushing an empty beer can in his fist. That should be mine. He threw the can at the wall, where it bounced off a framed photo of himself, a relic from his modeling days, that now seemed like a cruel joke. He had tried to get back into real estate, but word of his behavior had spread through the grapevine. In a town this size, dumping your wife moments after she births triplets wasn't just a moral failing, it was a PR nightmare that made him radioactive to clients. Desperation, however, is the mother of invention, and as Brad stared at the screen, a twisted idea began to take root in his mind. He didn't miss the children. In fact, The thought of changing 3 diapers at once still made him nauseous. But as he watched the news segment transition to a legal analyst discussing child support brackets for high net worth individuals, a light flickered behind his dull eyes. If Chloe was the primary custodian, she kept the money. But if the father, though grieving, alienated, misunderstood father had custody, the mother would be obligated to pay support to maintain the children's lifestyle. And Chloe's lifestyle was worth $100 million. 3 days later, Chloe was feeding Leo, one of the triplets, when her phone began to buzz incessantly on the marble kitchen island. It wasn't a call, it was a flood of notifications. She picked it up, swiping open a link sent by an old friend. It was a live stream from the local station's morning talk show. There sat Brad, wearing a humble, slightly oversized sweater instead of his usual tailored suits. He looked down at his hands, wiping away a non-existent tear as the host leaned in sympathetically. "I just want to see my kids," Brad sobbed on the screen, his voice trembling with a practiced fragility. "She has all this money now, all this power, and she thinks she can just cut me out. She has hired security to keep me away. I am just a father who wants to hold his babies. Is that a crime?" Chloe felt a cold spike of adrenaline. It was a lie so bold, so inverted from the truth, that it left her breathless. He hadn't called once. He hadn't sent a single text asking about their health. The host nodded gravely, looking directly into the camera. "Wealth should not be a weapon used to destroy families." To her side, the buzzer to the main gate rang through the house, interrupting the live stream. Chloe walked to the security monitor, her heart pounding against her ribs, not out of fear, but out of a rising, volcanic anger. On the grainy black and white screen, she saw a process server standing in the rain. She buzzed the gate open and walked to the front door, the heavy oak swinging inward to reveal the man dripping on her porch. "Chloe Sterling?" he asked, extending the plastic-wrapped package. She took it. The weight of the papers felt familiar, a dark echo of the hospital room. She didn't need to open it to know what it was, but she ripped the plastic anyway. Petition for full custody. Plaintiff, Bradley Sterling. Reason, parental alienation, an unfit maternal environment. He was suing her. He was trying to take the children he had called a litter simply because they were now his only path to a paycheck. Chloe didn't cry. She didn't tremble. The woman who had begged for a pen in the hospital was dead and buried. In her place stood the matriarch of the Sterling legacy. She pulled her phone out and dialed a number she had saved to her favorites. It rang once. "Mr. Henderson," Chloe said, her voice steady and as cold as the rain falling behind the server. "Yes? Chloe?" The lawyer's voice came through, warm and reassuring. "Brad just served me," she said, watching the server's car tail lights fade into the mist. "He is going on TV, claiming I stole the kids. He wants full custody and spousal support." There was a pause on the line, followed by the sound of a heavy leather book closing. "I was hoping he would be foolish enough to try this," Mr. Henderson said, a tone of grim satisfaction in his voice. "He has just opened the door to discovery, Chloe. That means we get to audit his entire life." Chloe looked back at the warm glow of the nursery where her triplets slept. "He wants a war, Mr. Henderson," Chloe whispered, gripping the papers until her knuckles turned white. "Then let us ensure," the lawyer replied, "that it is the last one he ever fights." "Your Honor, I was in shock," Brad said, his voice cracking with a perfectly calibrated tremor. He looked toward the jury, though there wasn't one for family court, directing his plea solely at Judge Miller, a stern woman with a reputation for zero tolerance. "I had just seen my wife in pain, and suddenly there were 3 babies. I panicked. It was a temporary lapse in judgment caused by acute anxiety. But when I tried to go back, when I tried to be the father I know I am meant to be, she had locked me out. She used her wealth to build a fortress around my children." Brad sniffled, lowering his head into his hands. His lawyer, a court-appointed attorney who looked exhausted, nodded solemnly. "She is alienating me," Brad whispered, the courtroom microphone picking up the wet sound of his intake of breath. "I just want to provide for them. I want to be a dad." Chloe sat at the plaintiff's table, her hands folded calmly on the polished wood. She didn't look at Brad. She looked at Mr. Henderson, who was slowly rising from his chair like a slumbering dragon waking up to feed. Mr. Henderson approached the stand, bypassing the podium entirely. He didn't carry a stack of papers this time. He carried only the silence that filled the room. Mr. Sterling, Mr. Henderson began, his voice deceptively light. You claim that your abandonment of my client in the recovery room was a moment of panic. A fugue state, I believe your counsel called it. Yes, Brad said, straightening up and looking at the lawyer with defiant eyes. I wasn't thinking clearly. You love my wife, Mr. Henderson nodded, pacing slightly to the left. And you stated under oath that you have been desperately trying to contact her to reconcile, not because of the trust fund, but because of your paternal instinct. Absolutely, Brad replied. The money means nothing to me. Mr. Henderson stopped pacing. He turned to the judge. Your Honor, I would like to submit Exhibit C into evidence. These are the subpoenaed text logs from Mr. Sterling's personal cell phone, dated the afternoon of the birth. Specifically, messages sent to a contact listed as Mikey Bookie in a group chat titled The Bat. Brad's face went from defiant to ashen in the span of a single heartbeat. He shifted in the chair, the wood creaking beneath him. Mr. Henderson pointed a remote at the screen, and the text messages appeared, looming over Brad like a neon billboard of his own sins. Mr. Henderson began to read, his voice projecting to the back of the room. Timestamp, 2:45 p.m. 10 minutes after signing the divorce papers. You wrote to Mikey. Dodged a bullet, bro. She popped out a letter. 3 of them. I bailed before she could ask for a diaper change. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Judge Miller's eyes narrowed, her gaze shifting from the screen to Brad. Mr. Henderson clicked the remote. Timestamp, 2:48 p.m. You wrote to the bachelor's group chat. Sign the papers. I am free. Who is up for drinks tonight? I need to celebrate not being a dad. Brad gripped the railing of the witness box, his knuckles turning white. That was just locker room talk. Brad stammered, sweat beginning to break through his makeup. I was venting. It doesn't mean anything. Mr. Henderson clicked the remote one final time. Timestamp, 3:15 p.m. This is after you learned about the trust fund, Mr. Henderson said, his voice dropping to a growl. You wrote to your mother. I messed up. The cow is worth $100 million. I need to get back in there before she realizes I can't undo the signature. I'm going to play the victim card. The silence in the courtroom was absolute, shattered only by the hum of the projector fan. Brad opened his mouth to speak, but no sound came out. The charade was over, stripped away by his own digital footprint. Judge Miller slammed her gavel down, the sound echoing like a gunshot. I have heard enough, she stated, her voice icy. Mr. Sterling, your behavior is not only reprehensible, it is predatory. You abandoned your children when they were vulnerable, and you returned only when you smelled money. She scribbled furiously on her notepad. Petition for custody is denied with prejudice. You are granted 0 visitation rights until you complete a 2-year court-mandated parenting course and psychological evaluation at your own expense. Furthermore, given the frivolous nature of this lawsuit and the emotional distress caused, you are ordered to pay the defendant's legal fees. Legal fees? Brad shrieked, standing up. But she has $100 million. I am broke. Mr. Henderson charges $1,000 an hour. Then I suggest you get a job, Mr. Sterling, the judge said, signaling the bailiff. Court is adjourned. 2 years later, Chloe sat on a checkered blanket in the park, the spring breeze playing with her hair. Around her, 3 toddlers waddled through the grass, chasing a golden retriever. She laughed as Leo tripped over his own feet, catching him before he fell. She looked peaceful, her life full of a richness that had nothing to do with the bank account, though the security it provided allowed her to breathe easy. She checked her watch, realizing it was time for lunch, and gathered the children. Let's go get some smoothies, she said, herding the trio toward the upscale cafe on the corner. Inside the cafe, the lunch rush was brutal. Brad sprayed the table with sanitizer, his arm aching from a double shift. He looked older than his years. The vanity of his youth, eroded by the grind of paying off a mountain of legal debt that would likely follow him for the rest of his life. He turned to the counter to grab a tray of dirty dishes and froze. Through the large glass window, he saw a woman and 3 beautiful children walking down the street. They looked like a magazine cover, happy unified, complete. He recognized the way Chloe threw her head back when she laughed. "Hey, new guy," the manager shouted, snapping his fingers. "Table 4 needs bussing. Stop daydreaming." Brad flinched, looking back at the window, but they were already gone. Disappeared into a future he had signed away with a borrowed pen. "I am on it," Brad whispered, grabbing the dirty rag and turning back to the mess he had made.